Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, wherever in the world you are. So today we are joined by Helen, and Helen helps people, mostly women, who say yes to everyone and everything to learn how to say no and also build confidence, boundaries, and best relationship of their lives. And I know it is so important for us, as women or men, as individual, to have that individuality and to have that inner voice and be able to speak our thoughts without being afraid or being judged. So welcome, Helen. I am so glad to have you here and just chat to you about your journey, your experience, and also find out more how you help women and men, I guess. So tell us more about yourself, and also, how does this people pleasing, you think, wreck people's lives?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Lena. So as you said, I'm a relationship coach, and I work with women, but also men who are finding that they're very caring and giving nature is that's great on the one hand, except that when you overgive and you give and give and give and it's to your own detriment, then it becomes a problem. And that used to be me. So if we rewind 5 years, I was the ultimate people pleaser but I just thought that's how life worked. I just thought, it's really unselfish, isn't it? I'm trying to look after everyone else and not think about myself, and society kind of condones that as well. It loves people that are givers, right? Love a giver. But I was basically driving myself into the ground, both in terms of my work and in my personal life. At work, I developed really bad repetitive strain injury in my wrists and my hands and my arms and my shoulders, because I was just the person at work that would just say yes to everything, everything. And it wasn't until I basically couldn't type anymore that I realized, oh my God, I need to change. But that was just in the work context. And then in terms of my relationship, I basically married a guy that he was abusive. He was very controlling. And I stayed in that relationship for a very long time. But a voice woke inside me, and I realized that if I didn't leave, that I was going to have a complete breakdown. And there was a small voice in my head saying, you deserve better than this. And I was so confused, but that was the tipping point for me to go and get help and start turning my life around. So I just know what it's like to be brought up as the good girl, as the one that kind of, is like mummy's little helper. And it's just raised that way, and then you just develop that in your life, and it just leads you into all sorts of problems. So what I typically see in terms of people that come to me that say, I'll be a people pleaser all my life, is it affects your business and your career, because you think that it's weak to ask anyone else for help. And so you try to do everything yourself. And of course, we can't do everything ourselves. And it means that we end up sabotaging our own chances of success, because we tend to be our own worst critics. And so that affects, obviously, other parts of our lives as well. And then in terms of our relationships with other people, with friends, we're obsessed with trying to fit in with whoever we're with. So we might wear a different mask depending on who we're with. And it means that there's no real connection there, because there's this mask between who our real self is, who we're hiding away because we don't think anybody wants to know them. And so we just don't have any kind of real connection with other people. And then in terms of our intimate relationships or our love lives, we tend to end up attracting people that have like complementary issues to us. So we either end up attracting somebody that wants to keep much more distant from us. So, you know, so you kind of have the classic, you know, you tend to end up being the needy one, and they're the one that they want a lot more space, and you kind of end up with this kind of game where you're chasing after them all the time, and they kind of want more space and you want more closeness. Or we find somebody else that's got similar issues to us, and neither of us know how to do boundaries, and so you kind of end up like blobbing together, and you end up with no two separate individuals in that relationship, and so you end up in unsatisfying relationships.
Yeah, no, I completely get it. I mean, that all makes sense, because I didn't realize, but you know, I mean, I was people pleaser big time, because what happened with me is when I was young, when I was 13, we moved from Russia to Israel, and when I got there, I couldn't speak the language. I could not understand anyone. So obviously, you know, I needed to make friends, and but that was still okay. I kind of managed, and you know, I was very independent always, and I could always speak my voice, and I had my opinions, and if you like me, you like me. If you didn't, you didn't. But then we lived there for a year, and then we moved to South Africa. And when we got there, I once again couldn't speak the language. And that time it was really difficult, you know, for me to adjust. So the only way I could is by literally fitting in and just by copying the other girls, because of course I wanted to hang out with the popular and a pretty crowd, you know, not with the nerds. You know what it's like when you're 13, 14. And that was, you know, just doing what they did. Even sometimes I thought, that's not really what I want to do. This is not what I believe in. This is what I stand for. But I've suppressed it, you know, and then you carry on suppressing it, and then you start listening to other people, and then it just becomes easier. It just becomes easier to go along rather than say, this is who I am, take it or leave it, you know. And the fact is, the way I see it now, there are billions of people in the world, right? Even if millions of them don't like me, it still leaves billions of people. And, you know, I mean, it's just like now, like when I speak about something, when I say something to somebody, of course, I try to be, you know, I'm very cautious, not cautious, but, you know, I don't want to upset anyone. I try to be as authentic and genuine as I can, but sometimes we're going to disagree on things, you know, we don't see eye to eye, and that's fine. You know, it's nothing personal. If they want to take it personally, I'm really sorry, but that's their choice. It's not my choice. So, and it's, you also kind of like feel like, you feel freer, don't you? You feel lighter when all the stress and anxiety and just like, is he or is she happy with me? Did I say the right thing? What are they going to think? And it's just like constant, and it's exhausting, absolutely exhausting. It has mental, you know, it affects you mentally, emotionally, physically on all different levels.
Absolutely. Yeah. You end up being really hyper vigilant to how you think everyone else is thinking and feeling. You're just on high alert all the time. Yeah.
So, you know, so what does it then look like when you break free of people pleasing? Like, tell us about your experience. How did you break out of it, and how did you feel?
So when you start this journey and you start breaking out of these old patterns of people pleasing, it transforms your life, because you're no longer seeking other people's approval. You're learning to validate yourself and value your own serenity, like above everything else. And so what that means in terms of, you know, business or career is that you do start to ask other people for help, and you get the help, and that you do start to take appropriate risks, and you know, and you start to play bigger. And then in terms of relationships, like you start to develop much more real connections with other people, and you don't feel like the need to be needed in that relationship. And then in particular, in terms of like romantic relationships, we stop trying to change the other person.
Absolutely. And that's a big
thing,
isn't it?
Oh my God, we're just like, well, I would be happy only if like they just change that one thing, and then it will all be fine and we'll be happy. But yeah, so we learn to let go of that. And we also learn to ask ourselves the question, is this relationship good for me? because we're no longer obsessing about, oh, is what I'm doing okay for them? It's actually, is this relationship good for me? And we feel able to let go of relationships that actually aren't any good for us anymore. And what that means for us, like internally, is like we can stop this constant monitoring of what we think everybody else is thinking and feeling, and we can tune into how we really feel. And actually that helps us reclaim our power, because we can't really represent ourselves in the world accurately if we don't know how we feel. And so that's been a really like powerful learning journey for me in just turning my attention inwards, because you know the old reflex, the old pattern is to always think, oh gosh, what are they thinking, what are they feeling? It's a no, okay, let me turn my attention inwards. I think, well, what am I thinking, what am I feeling? It's like so simple, but it's so revolutionary.
Completely, because like you said it earlier, we've been raised to be like a good person, to give, you know, a lot and ask for little, and to project our love onto others, and, you know, to ask for help. But at the end of the day, if you don't have that self-love and self-appreciation, how can you give away something you don't have, right? And that's where you kind of start trying to give away something you don't have. So that's when you start relying on all these external resources. You know, maybe it's a holiday, like, oh, when I go on holiday I'll be more relaxed, I can actually give my kids or my husband or whatever more attention. Or when I buy this pair of shoes, I'll be so happy, so I can go and make them a nice dinner. But then whenever you shift your attention on the outside things, something will always disappoint you. There's always going to be traffic, and always going to be somebody who gives you a finger, and there's always going to be somebody who shouts at you. And if you're going to let this affect you, then it's just, you know, your whole life you're just going to be chasing after something. And it's a whole thing, it's about that inner self, isn't it? That's where you really get your strength and your voice from, and finding that. So how do you think somebody would find that? How can someone make these changes?
So it starts off with having that, I suppose, that real powerful desire to change. You know, it's because, like, even if something is awful, it's still familiar, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, people like familiar things, right? It's that habits they can't break out of.
So there does have to be that kind of, I've had enough, I am ready to change. There does have to be that commitment to recovery, to your own recovery. And then it's, I think, a couple of things to really get started with. It's becoming more aware of what is going on for you. So it's turning that attention inwards and just noticing, like, when you are particularly drawn into people-pleasing patterns, when does that come up for you? Is it like with particular people or particular situations? But ultimately it's about our relationship that we have with ourselves. So, you know, when we're people-pleasing, we're so focused on our relationships with other people, and people often come to me because they want to improve their relationships with other people. The place we start is the relationship that we have with ourselves, because typically we feel, you know, when we're stuck in people pleasing, we feel like we have this emptiness inside, and it's really unlearning that and learning that actually that was a lie, and that actually everything that we need is inside of us, and actually that we are enough. And that is a journey in itself, like learning how to undo the old patterns of thinking and feeling. So once we kind of build up that relationship with ourselves, then our relationships with other people improve. And it's also about learning healthy relationship skills, because not a lot of us saw them as we were growing up, and it's not something that we're taught. And in particular, it's about learning all about boundaries, like what is okay for us, what's not okay for us, and how to deal with conflict, because people pleasers are terrified of conflict. Like, oh my God, get me out of here. It's learning that actually, you know, having arguments and conflict is actually it's a natural part of a relationship, and it doesn't mean that, you know, that the world is going to end. It really doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, conflict is something, you know, I've really struggled. I think still even now, you know, I try and avoid them as much as I can. I got a lot better, but before I was just like completely back into the corner. I'll just leave the house. So I could never voice my opinion because I found I didn't even have an opinion. I just didn't think it was so important, you know. And somebody actually said that, I think it was the Harv Eker, I was reading the book. He said, the only time when you become truly free and truly happy is when you let go of the need to be right. Because there's nothing to prove to anyone. And he's so right. And I've never had that need to be right, but so many people around me, you know, it's their point of view and why don't I understand and why this? And I'm like, but what does it matter? And I could not express that. You know, once I heard it from Harv Eker, I think it was The Secret Mind of a Millionaire, which is a fantastic book. I was like, exactly. I just could never, you know, formulate it as nicely as he did, because that's when you're truly free, because it's their world, it's their opinions, it's their, you know, and this is yours. How can you actually project your personality, what your beliefs into somebody else? It's actually completely unfair on them. And there's even a test, isn't it, where you look at the same objects, or, you know, what do you see when you look at the pattern? And some people will see head, other people will see flowers, somebody will see something else. And this is like in life, with everything is like that. We see and feel very different things in the same situation. And I guess just realizing that, you know, that's this is what it is. And also what you said about sometimes it's not even just about learning, it's about unlearning. You know, it's unlearning and going back to basics, because you already have everything we need to heal, but you've got so many boundaries, so many walls to build around it. And it's not just building more, it's actually removing all that clutter and just going back inside ourselves that really help to focus and build ourselves up. So yeah, this is brilliant. So what else do you do, like, for, you know, do you do any meditations or anything like that just to help with the mindset? Do you read any books? Like, is there any books maybe you can recommend if somebody wanted to start?
Yeah. So with my clients, I use an integrated approach to coaching. So I kind of work with like mind, body, and soul, because I think we need all of it. So I draw on kind of like cognitive behavioral techniques, some transactional analysis stuff, some inner child work. And then with some clients that are open to it, we will meditate together, or I'll give them guided meditations to go away and use. And also incorporating like mindfulness practices, because it really helps with reducing that overthinking and also developing that awareness of our own thoughts and feelings, not to stop identifying with our thoughts and feelings, and being able to kind of just step back from them is really, really helpful. And in terms of books, well, I wrote a short one,
Nice.
which is focused on relationships, and it's called Building Healthy Boundaries. It's an overgiver's guide on when to say yes and how to say no in relationships, and it's completely free, and it's downloadable from my website, and it gives you the stepping stones for how to start to build boundaries. Like, it's not a magic pill, but it gives you the steps that you can take that I know work, because they work for me.
Okay, brilliant. So somebody wanted to get in touch, where can they find you?
My website, which is just my name, so it's helensnape.com. You can find me on Facebook, Helen Snape Coaching, and I'm on Instagram and other places too.
So if you'll share your links with me, I'll just pop them under the video, and then anyone, so can find you. So Helen, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today, and thanks for sharing your wisdom with us. I think it's a topic, you know, so close to the hearts of so many. So it's great to know there's an expert like yourself who can help people to transform their lives. And for anybody who's watched this, I hope you enjoyed it. I will share Helen's social media, Instagram, wherever she is, just underneath the video. So just click on there and feel free to get in touch with her. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks again, Helen. I will see you all soon. Bye for now.